All right. So this takes us back. The Yidden enter Eretz Yisrael, all the Yidden together, under the leadership of Yeshua, and 440 years pass until they build the first Beis HaMikdash. And finally, the first Beis HaMikdash is built. All the Yidden are b'shalom u'ba'achdos. Things are nice and dandy. Shlomo HaMelech was king. The year was 2,928 from creation. And that was really the climax, the zenith, the peak of Yiddish Malchus, the success of Yidden as a nation. We know the Medrash says that in the times of Shlomo, Nismala discus shelavona, the disk of the moon was complete. Or in the words of the Zohar, Kai Masira Ba'ashlamusa, the moon was complete. And what that means is just like a month, it takes 15 days till the moon, appears in its full glory, and then it begins to diminish. It wanes. Azoy oich the Yidden, it took 15 generations from Avraham until Shlomo, and it lists all 15 generations. And then the time of Shlomo, it was the greatest time in Yiddish history. 15. Look at Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yehuda.
I don't think it was
Peretz,
so great for all the Jews.
It goes down to
they
15.
Revolted against it because it taxed them so much.
In the next generation.
I thought generation
the times of
20 to 30 years.
It took, but if you actually go from father to son, you'll get 15 people. From Avram, if you count, you can go through the names, till you get to Shlomo. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yehuda, Peretz, Chetzron, Ram, Aminadov, Nachshon, Salmon, Ovid, Boaz, Ovid, Yishai, David, Shlomo. Takes us to 15.
I remember Salmon, and I remember Boaz, I don't remember Ovid.
Wow. Now, then there's 15 more generations till you get from Shlomo until pretty much the end of the Yiddish kings, a guy named Yoshiyahu. Wow. Yoshiyahu was a great melech.
One of those 15?
He's a kid. Never anybody like
and
that.
Exactly, Yoshiyahu, nobody. It says nobody did tshuva like Yoshiyahu. There was never a king that returned to Hashem b'chol levava b'chol nafshe like Yoshiyahu the king.
Hashem pushed off the Beis HaMikdash getting destroyed by like a couple of generations because
he was the last king.
He was the last autonomous king. He was murdered by Paro because Paro wanted to have a battle with one of the kingdoms northeast of Eretz Yisrael, and to go from Mitzrayim, he wanted to pass through Eretz Yisrael, and Yoshiyahu didn't want to let him in because Yoshiyahu says in this week's parsha, "V'chedev lo yisai," it's a Gemara in Tainas. It says, "V'chedev lo yisaver ba'artzachem," a sword won't pass through your land. And the Gemara says, "Afilu chedev shel shalom." Hashem's promise is, if you listen to the Eibishter, even friendly fire won't pass through your land. Even Padoi, who just wants to cut through your land to fight another nation, the sword won't pass through your land. So Yeshua wanted to restrict access. Pari can't come in. Yirmiyah, who was the Navi, then told Yeshua that you look at the Yidden in a positive light, but they halten nicht dabei. They're not holding by him. They're not holding there. And therefore the Eibush is not giving the promise that a friendly fire won't enter your land. Yeshua said, nonetheless, I'm not letting Pari in. Pari was upset. He came in and they threw arrows at Yeshua. They turned him into a sieve. There was so much, he was full of holes, Pashat. And when Yirmiyah says in Eicha, Ruach Hapeinu Mashiach Hashem, the breath of our nostrils, the anointed one of God, he refers to his good buddy Yoshiyahu. Now, Yeshua was the last autonomous king because after Pari killed him, Pari installed his son Yehoiachaz for 3 months as a king, and then his son Yehoiakim, and then Nebuchadnezzar installed the last two. So the last 4 kings, which lasted for about 22 and a half years, were puppet kings. 2 of them were installed by Pari, the last 2 installed by Nebuchadnezzar. What? No, Yiddish kings. They were from Malchus Beis David.
Pari?
Paro installed. He put them in.
He said his son.
Yoshia's son. Yoshia's son. Yeah. But the last autonomous king, the last real balabas, was Yoshio. He actually became king when he was 8, and he ruled for 31 years. Now, Al Kopanim, in the beginning, the time of Shlomo, things were nice and dandy. When Shlomo passed away at the age of 52, Shlomo ruled for 40 years. At the age of 52, he passed on, and he left a son. He left numerous, right? He had 1,000 wives, lots of kids. But he left a son, Rechavam, who was going to take over. And Rechavam was deliberating whether to keep up the high taxes that Shlomo enforced or not. The older Chachamim told Rechavam, "You're not your father. Your father was such a Chacham. He garnished such covet from the Goyim. The Yidden were happy to pay the taxes because they were getting something in return. But you're not going to give Yidden the same covet your father gave them. You can't just ask for the taxes." Rechavam's younger friend says, "Fakert, don't show the people you're weak. Flex your muscles, demand the taxes." And he followed the advice of his young friends. The Gemara says about this that the advice of youngsters is awful. And it says that when elders destroy, it's really building. Stiras Zkenim binyan. When old people destroy something, it's really part of it's a building process.
Guys were old at
but
this time.
but binyan na'arim stira. When young people, they build, it's destruction. When the elders destroy, they're really building. When the younger people build, they're really destroying. And the eitzah they gave Rechavam, which he followed, was ended in abysmal failure because the Yidden decided to revolt. What happened was like this. Rechavam.
What was the tax rate? No, seriously.
Too much. I don't know. Rechavam was situated in the area of Yehuda, which is in the south of Eretz Yisrael. Who stayed loyal to Rechavam? Obviously the Shevet of Yehuda, the Shevet of Binyamin, because they're situated there as well, and the Shevet of Levi, because they work in the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, so there were individuals from the other tribes that wanted to stay, but not so many. You have to understand, they wouldn't really have had ancestral lands to live in. But there were some Yechidim that stayed. But for the most part, the other 10 tribes moved to the north. Now it wasn't Mamish 10 because Reuven, Gad, and half of Menashe were east. They were on the other side of the Jordan, of the Yarden, and therefore they were east. So in the north you had the rest, and they found a king in Yeravam ben Nevat. Yeravam was one of the greatest scholars that ever lived, and originally he was very pious, and he was promised by Achia Hashaloni, the great Navi, that he can become a king alongside the kings of Malchus Beis David. There can be a king from the other Shvatim. The problem was he got into a fight with Shlomo and he ran to Mitzrayim. When he was in Mitzrayim, he learned negative practices of idol worship, and when he came back to Eretz Yisrael and he was appointed king of the northern kingdom, the Malchus Yisrael, so he implemented his wild ideas. And why he did it was for the following: when it came Yom Tov, the Yidden wanted to be Oil L'Regel. And Yeravam scratches his head. He said, "Wait a second. If they all go into the Beis HaMikdash, what are they all going to see? Everyone is going to stand. There's only one person who's allowed to sit in the Azorah. Ein yeshiva ba'Azorah elo l'malchei Beis David bilvad." The Gemara says no one can sit in the Azorah except for an Einukul of David. So imagine I'm standing, Rechavim sitting, in the bush. Everyone's going to realize I'm a fake king. So he put up roadblocks, which lasted for hundreds of years, that no one can go from the north to the south. The Yidden, they want religion. He said, so we'll make our own temple. He made a golden calf, 2. One in the north of his kingdom, one in the south. And he said, we're going to make a new Yom Tov. Instead of Sukkot during Tishrei, it's going to be Tesvav Cheshvan. And I'm going to be the Kohen Gadol. And that was kind of the beginning of the... Right. In fact, the Medrash Rabbah says that when the Shvatim threw Yosef in the pit and they wanted to kill Yosef, they wanted to judge him like a Ben Seder or murder. Just like a Ben Seder murderer, you punish him based on what he's going to do, he will become a murderer. So too, they wanted to kill Yosef because Yeravam ben Nevat came from Ephraim, who comes from Yosef. So they wanted to knock off Yosef based on what's going to happen in the future. That was the rationale, says the Medrash Rabbah. Anyhow, Salkapanim, the kingdom was split for about 250 years roughly. And then the Malachim, the kings of Ashur, which is northeast of Eretz Yisrael, there was a group of kings, about 3 different kings. Over a couple of years, they exiled all the 10 tribes. They began with Reuven, Gad, and half of Manasseh that were east of the Yarden. They went first. And Chazal say it was a punishment. The fact they didn't want to go to Eretz Yisrael and they took, Trans-Jordan. Because of that, they were punished that they were the first to be knocked out. And then, so it was a group of kings. There was Tiglath-Pileser, who knocked off Reuven, Gad, and half of Manasseh. And then there was Sancheriv and Shalmaneser, who may be 2 names of the same person, who knocked out the 10 tribes.
You sent them all to the same place, or different?
So we're going to see. That's exactly what we're going to see. So our story starts over here. This happened about 130 years before Churban Bayis Rishon. 130 years before the Churban Bayis Rishon. So we start with number 1, the Pasuk can say from Malachim, where it describes Vayegel Melech Ashur exiled as Yisrael, Ashur to the kingdom of Ashur, Assyria, which was it was a huge kingdom at the time, and it was
the biggest kingdom ever at that time.
Northeast, the biggest kingdom ever at that time.
Syria
before,
till that time it was the biggest. Some people say
the Golan Heights
afterwards.
Right. At the time it was big. Right. They're saying at the time,
there was no bigger
it was it had reached the biggest empire, right?
Where Syria is today, or
and Iraq,
not Syria,
Iraq,
it's like
Iraq,
a triangle.
Northeast of
it's a triangle between Syria,
Ashur,
Turkey,
and Bavel
and Iraq. It's like a little triangle area.
Yeah, it was all part of. It's the same area. Vayanchem, and then he led them. Though it sounds like he led them further. Bachalach in Chalach, ubechover in Chover, Nahar Goizen, the river of Goizen, Va'ore Modai, and the cities of Modai. So Modai is Media. Modai we know is next to Paras, right? Persia and Media. Where exactly was the Gvul of Paras, and where exactly was the Gvul of Modai? It's hard to know exactly. The pasuk then says, why were they exiled? Ala Shalom. They didn't listen to the voice of Hashem, and they were over the bris that Moshe, the servant of Hashem, had enacted with them. V'lo shama, they didn't listen, etc. So they were gone. So the shaila is, so what happened to them? So this year we're going to see the classical texts. It's a puzzle. And each of the pieces over here are different pieces of the puzzle. There's lots of opinions. We're going to see that. We're going to see that before. Right. We're going to see numerous machlokes along the way. And there's Pasha a ton to talk about. Like I said, I'm sure everybody here has heard something over time. There was a claim that the Indians in America were part of the 10 tribes. Way back when. All types of claims in Ethiopia and India,
Yemenite Jews.
Yemen. Well, they were Takya.
Argentina and Iran.
And Pakistan, and then Rabbi Taliban says the Taliban's latest claim is that actually one of these people, it happened in the year 1910, that a fellow rocked up in Eretz Yisrael. And he was wearing funny clothes, and he looked like he had traveled. His skin was cracked from the sun and tanned, and he was older. And he said he wants to learn Kabbalah. He's looking for the secrets of the Torah. And he there was a Kabbalah yeshiva there called Shara Shamayim. And when he came there, so what happened was when he first came, he was asking people, where are the Jews? So they directed him to the Yidden around. He said, they're not Yidden. Because the Yidden there, many of them didn't have beards in the year 1910 in Eretz Yisrael. And this guy said, where I come from, every Jew has a beard. He was certain these people were Christians. They must be Christians. So he was told, converse with them in Hebrew, you'll see they're not Christians. And he spoke to them, he realized they're Yidden, and he was baffled that these people were Yidden. He said, where I come, I've never seen a Jew without a beard. Anyway, they tried pressing him, where do you come from, what's your story? The whole thing remained a mystery, but in the yeshiva they said at the time, when they were mafarshim the story, that they were certain that he was from Naseres Hashvatim, and he was bewildered that there were Yidden there without beards. What? Yeah, the Eldad Hadani. We'll see if we get this. Lots to talk about. That happened in the 800s, a long time ago. That was more than 1,200 years ago. Fine.
Ego.
Yeah.
Well, it was 880 when it happened. Anyhow, so number two. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. There's a Mishnah and there's a Braisa. Says the Mishnah, Aseres Hashvatim, the 10 tribes, Einon Asidin Lachzor, are never coming back. They're gone. Now, by the way, when we say they're gone, the oldest question in the book has always been, what does that mean? Does that mean that they're literally cast away somewhere? You know, like you have these nations, like in the Amazons, that the Goyish law doesn't even allow you to enter. You know, so these people, you know, are they there? Are they in some remote place to face in Nepal or in China that they're just hiding there? Or the vart is that by now they're just absorbed amongst the Goyim. They're lost because they're unidentifiable. No one knows who they are. They themselves don't even know who they are.
What about cut off? Dead. Why not that an option?
Because nobody says that. Nobody says that. I haven't seen an opinion that says that they've all died out. Yeah.
He traveled all over and he found scattered some shit.
Either they're hidden somewhere.
So there's lots of stories. Okay, we'll get to the stories.
Watching everybody, right?
But if they're scattered in the
Yeah.
So why can't we say Ezra collected these people?
No. Yirmiyah may have collected. So let's see what the rabbis say. So the 10 Shvatim ain't coming back. Now we're going to see, this is Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Shenemar, it's a pasuk in Chumash that Moshe prophesies, the Ashlichem, the Eibishter will cast them al Eretz Acheres to another land, Kayom Hazeh, just like the day. Just like when a day passes, it ain't coming back. Tomorrow's a new day, but the day that passed is gone forever. The time has disappeared. Mahayim, just like the day, Hoylech Liz, Einer Chayzer, it ain't coming back. So too, the 10 tribes, Holchim, they go, Einer Chayzer, they're not returning, the words of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Eliezer, who's Rabbi Akiva's teacher, says no. Moshe didn't mean it's like a specific day. He meant they're like day Bechlal. Bechlal, when the sun sets, don't be afraid. The sun will rise again. You know, when Adam Arishan saw the sun set, you know, he was extremely afraid. Hashem said, don't worry, it's going to come back. Rabbi Eliezer says Moshe is just comparing the 10 tribes to the day in general, not to a specific day. Bechlal, daytime. When the sun sets, don't be afraid. The sun will rise again.
Tomorrow's another day.
Exactly. It's also a day. So just Ma Yoim, just like the day Ma Filataka becomes dark, but Umeir, it will shine again. So to the 10 tribes, Afeilu Lehen Taka, they went through a dark period. But Kach Hasidu Laharlem, it will be light for them once again. So here's a debate. So the debate seems to be pretty simple. Rabbi Eliezer says one day we're going to see them again. Rabbi Akiva says you won't. There happens to be a major debate between Rashi and the Ramban of how to understand this Mishnah, which really is sets the whole scene for any discussion about the 10 tribes. Rashi says it's talking about Mashiach. When Mashiach comes and is going to gather all the Yidden together, he won't gather the 10 tribes. So even though we're talking about descendants, a couple thousand years later, they ain't coming back.
Is that who we're talking about, or are we talking about that specific generation?
No, Rashi says that when Mashiach comes, they're not coming back.
Descendants.
Yeah, their descendants ain't coming back. The Ramban, and the Meiri holds like Rashi as well. Rashi, though, quotes a pshat from his Rebbe's, which is also the pshat in the Ramban. What's the opinion of the Ramban and Rashi's Rebbe's? Wait a second. The Ramban says if you look through Nach, there's many sources that in the future all 12 tribes will be there. In Yechezkel speaks. Yechezkel was during the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash and afterwards. And Yechezkel speaks about the 13, about having all the 12 gates in Yerushalayim, all the tribes being there. So the Ramban says, what in the world's going on? The Ramban says, you know what Rabbi Akiva meant in the Mishnah? He's talking about Olam Haba. What does Olam Haba mean? It's talking about only the 10 tribes themselves, those people that were wicked enough and were entrenched in idol worship, that they were scattered, outside Eretz Yisrael, they were exiled. Those people are not going to have a chance in Olam Haba, which would mean Gan Eden, or in Tchiyas HaMesim. Either way you touch. Either way you touch Olam Haba, but it's talking about them personally. Whether when they died about going to Gan Eden, they won't get the special Yiddish Gan Eden, because they wanted to live as goyim, so that's what they got. Or it refers to Olam Haba as Tchias HaMeisim, they ain't coming back. Now this is all the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. But even in Rabbi Akiva, that's what he means. Mashenkin, their descendants, who to no fault of their own are ignorant of their Yiddishkeit, they will come back when Mashiach comes. They could have Gan Eden, they could have Tchias HaMeisim. That's a major thing. That means the whole inyan of them being lost, according to Rabbi Akiva, lost for good, is only for those people themselves. They're Einiklach, who may be physically lost today. Like we said, either that means they're stuck somewhere or they're just absorbed amongst the nations, but they will come back. But that's all in the Ramban. Rashi learns no. Rashi learns according to Rabbi Akiva, it means even the Einiklach that are lost today physically are also going to be lost spiritually. They ain't coming back. Now, what's Rashi going to do with the psukim in Yechezkel that speak about the 12 tribes when Mashiach comes? According to Rashi, Rabbi Akiva meant that they ain't coming back, they're gone for good. None of them are coming back. So what's the pasuk in Yechezkel mean? It means like this. During the couple hundred years, during the first Beis HaMikdash, when you had this barrier, there were many pious people in the northern kingdom. Don't you think they wanted to deflect, jump ship, jump down south? Many of them did. Over time, many people jumped down south and joined the three Shvatim down south. So amongst us today, we think we're all from Yehuda, Binyamin, and Levi. Many of us are from other Shvatim. In fact, but by the first crusade, one of the big Rishonim, one of the big masters of Torah that was killed in Mainz, forgot what his first name was, Baruch maybe, but he was known that he was from Shevet Dan. He was from Shevet Dan, and that's what everybody knew. The famous story, the Chayz of Lublin, he always felt every Chanukah he would be inspired in his heart. I'm sorry, not the Chayz of Lublin. His student, the Bnei Yissaschar, Reb Tzvi Elimelech of Dinov. Every Chanukah he felt an inspiration. He was sure that he must come from the Chashmonoim, or else why is he getting so excited? But that means he's a Kohen. Chashmonoim are Kohenim. Yeah. But he's not, maybe comes from his mother. He went to the Chayz of Lublin.
So anybody who said that they are from the
So there's a big machlokes here between the Ramban, the Ran, and other Rishonim. What happened was many of the survivors hid. What the girl meant when she jumped off the roof was if anybody says they're an Einikol, they're lying, because the real ones are hiding because they don't want to be killed. But later on in time, they that was a story of Hurdas and Baba Basra that is referenced.
Give us full background.
What? No, because no. We can't get off. There's not too much on topic. We can't afford to get off topic. Yes, that's
Can we file that away for a future?
File whatever you want to. Anyhow, so let's go weiter.
I don't like that opinion.
So the Chayze and the Bnei Yissaschar asks the Chayze, am I taka from the Chashmonoim? I feel so, every Chanukah is like my Yom Tov. So the Chayze said, no, you're not a Kohen. You come from Shevet Yissaschar. The reason why you're excited every Chanukah is because in your previous Gilgul, you were on the Bezdin of the Chashmonoim. You were not a Kohen, you're from Shevet Yissaschar, but that's why you get excited. So Bnei Yissaschar therefore titled his Sefer Bnei Yissaschar because it was revealed to him he comes from Yissaschar. So you see, people could come from different nations. So what Rashi would say is in the future, you know what's going to happen? The 10 tribes that were lost are lost forever, physically and spiritually. But amongst people around the table, you might come from Zvulun, you might come from God. When Mashiach comes, there'll be, it will be highlighted who comes from it, and then we're all going to take our right places in the Holy Land. That's Rashi's take. Okay, so that's one very important debate. Again, it's all in the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says they're lost forever. Rashi learns Kepshutai, and the Meiri Kepshutai, even their Einik, whoever they are, they're not coming back. Masha Enkein, the Ramban, and Rashi quotes the same thing from his Rebbes, is talking about the specific people that were exiled by Sancheriv, that they don't have Gan Eden, or they won't have Tchias HaMeisim, but their Einik today will come back. That's one debate. Anyhow, the Gemara just quotes a Braisa, Aseres HaShvatim don't have a Chelik in Olam Haba. That definitely sounds like the Ramban and Rashi's Rebbes, that we're talking about the actual 10 tribes that were exiled. Will they have a chelik in the world to come, which either means Gan Eden or by Tchias HaMeisim? And the pasuk is that Vayitchem Hashem cast them away, he banished them from their land. Ba'afu b'chema b'kesef gadol, with much anger. Vayitchem Hashem ma'al admosam is talking about when he physically exiled them in this world. Then the pasuk continues, and we quoted this in the Mishnah. Vayashlichem, he cast them el eretz acheres, to another land. Those are extra words. That's talking about Ne'elam Haba. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Ish Kfar Akko says in the name of Rabbi Shimon, so that's Rashbi, that no, they were compared to the day that if they continue to act like they did on the day that they were exiled, well, Stam Rab Shimon is Rab Shimon ben Yochai.
No, but it says Ben Yehuda.
Yeah, but the next line it says he said in the name of Rab Shimon. There's two rations, two lines. The second one is Rab Shimon ben Yochai. If they continue to act the way they did on the day they were exiled, they ain't coming back. Sorry?
When will they continue? What do you
talk about after they were exiled? If they're going to continue to act like the way they did, they're not coming back. Im lav, but if not, chayzrin. So that could refer either to the people themselves or their einiklach. It's a bit ambiguous. It just means that there's hope. You know, if they continue to be as rotten, they're lost. But if they change their ways, they could do tshuva. That's it. Yeah, it's a poetic. You know, it's.
But that was hundreds of years later. Kayem Hazah.
No, that pasuk was said by Moshe about a prophecy of what's going to happen. And then Rebbe says, "Boy meim lo'elam haba." No, they will come to Elam Haba. So that's like Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah, because it says, "V'hoya bayay maho yitaka b'shofar gadol ubo ha'avdim from Eretz Ashur." Who are the Avdim in Eretz Ashur? The 10 tribes on Chev exile. It says they're coming back. In fact, what's Rabbi Akiva going to do with that pasuk? That's a good pasuk.
Yeah.
That's a good pasuk. That's what the Gemara says. In fact, the Radvaz writes in a tshuva. I don't have it on the paper, but he says, listen, usually Rabbi Akiva is the man, right? And in the Mishnah, he only argues with Rabbi Eliezer, his teacher. And we have a rule, we never paskin like Rabbi Eliezer. For sure not against Rabbi Akiva. But if you look in the Braisa, you see that Rabbi Shimon, you know, the majority of Chacham disagreed with Rabbi Akiva. So in this case, we actually don't even pass like Rabbi Akiva, according to the Radvaz.
Why is he so extreme?
In fact, the Gemara actually says, Shavke Rabbi Akiva l'chasiduse. In this case, he left his piety. Usually he was always Malamed Zchus on Yidden, and here he was very sharp. Fine. Either way, let's go weiter. Number 3. This is an extremely important Gemara. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Tzadik Dalet. It's funny, for some reason when most people learn the sugya of Aser Sashvatim, this Gemara doesn't get quoted. Because it's not in the sugya of the 10 tribes, and it's only a one line. But it's worth its weight in gold. Lehecha igli luhu. Where did Sancheir send them? Marzutra Amar LaAfriki. Marzutra says it was to Africa. Now you think Africa is Africa, Lav Davka means Africa. We're going to see a Maharal on the next page who says Africa it's not the Africa that we know.
So where is it?
But it could be Turkey, it could be the stands, any of the stands. All things going east towards the mountains of darkness, which might be the Himalayas. But let's see. So LaAfriki to Afriki. Rabbi Chanina Amar to the mountains of Suluk. Okay. So we have, it's amazing. It tells us where they are. The problem is no one knows what these words mean. And the Gemara there says that Sancheriv, he never spoke bad about Eretz Yisrael. But you know what happened as the Yidden were being taken to these foreign lands? Yisrael, Sipru B'Gnusa, they spoke derogatively about Eretz Yisrael. Kimatu Shois, when they came to Shush, maybe that's Shushan in Iran, Amri, they said, Shavge Kiarin, Shush, it's equal to the land that it's just as good as what we had in Eretz Yisrael. When they came to Almin, they said, Ka'almin, it's like the world we come from. When they came to Shosh Trey, they said, this place is Trey, it's twice as good as where we came from. As they were being led in exile, you know, they weren't saying, there's no place like home. They were saying, who needs the whole land? This is just as good. All right. Okay. Join me to number 9 for a minute. Jump to number 9 in the next page. This is a Gemara in Yevamos 17. It's Daf Yud Zayin. This is a very important Gemara, and the reason why I'm learning it, we're going to learn it now. You'll see. Amar Rav Asi. Rav Asi said. Rav Asi is of the opinion that if a Yiddish man lives with a Goyish woman and has a kid, Rav Asi holds the kid's Jewish. Ein halacha Rav Asi, but Rav Asi holds if the father's a Yid and mother's a Goy, the kid's Jewish, but the kid's a Mamzer. But it's Jewish. It's Jewish.
And the other way is Jewish also.
The halacha is a Goy.
No, I'm saying the other way.
Oh, okay. Well, look. So the other,
according to Rashi, the mother's Jewish and the father's not.
So it's also a Mamzer. There happens to be, if the mother's Jewish and father's a Goy, there are three opinions in the Poskim. One opinion is Mamzer. In fact, that's Rabbi Akiva's opinion. The halach of Shulchan Aruch is the kid's Jewish and not a Mamzer. But there's also a third opinion that the kid's a Goy. But let's leave that off the table. That's if the mother's Jewish and the father's a Goy. One opinion is the Goy, but that's a minority opinion. It's not really accepted. The vast opinion is the kid's fully Jewish, not even a Mamzer. In fact, it's actually very strange. Imagine you have a married Jewish woman. If she's Mazana with another Yid, then her kid's a Mamzer, because she's an Eishes Ish. If she's Mazana with a Goy, the halacha is the kid is perfectly Jewish, not a Mamzer. So wonder how could the kid be better off if his father's a Goy? So the answer is the Eibishter is mafkir the zera of the Goy. That when a Goy has bia with a Jewish woman, the Eibishter severs the zera. It's like donor zera. When the donor is classified, no one can ever find out who it is. Like you have lahavdil in Heintikateg. When the kids can never even find out who the father is, sometimes it makes such a law. So you have a similar thing in Torah. So therefore the kid's perfectly Jewish because he has no father. It's not he has a Goyish father, he's Nishdok and Tate. Mashenkin, if his father was a Jew, he's a Mamzer because his father did a major Aveir in creating him. So he's actually in a way worse off. Although he belongs to a Shevet. Mashenkin the other way, he doesn't have a Shevet, he's like no man's land. Anyhow, Akoponim, Rav Ashi though, let's get back to this.
Mamzer on a Shevet.
Yeah.
Mamzer with the Shevet.
The Nesivos HaMishpat has a wild shitza, because yesterday was his yard site, so just to quote, the Nesivos has a wild shuvah. The Nesivos holds that both parents have to be Jewish for the kid to be Jewish. He holds if the mother's Jewish and father's a Goy, the kid needs to be Megayer. But when the kid's Megayer, he retroactively becomes Jewish from birth. And he has the whole tshuva why he says that to answer certain Gemaras. It's a wild opinion, but like we said, that's not mainstream halacha. Mainstream is the kid's fully Jewish, no problems. But this is all if the mother's Jewish and father's a Goy. Now the Asi holds if the father's a Yid and mother's a Goy, the kid's also Jewish, but is a Mamzer. Now, knowing that, Omar Rav Asi, Oivid kechovim shekiddush bisman hazeh. John from the street, he finds a Jewish girl, and he marries her by the chuppah. Later they find out the guy's a Goy, and he took the whole thing was a far. He's a Goy. Says Rav Asi choyshin l'kiddushin. No, not so fast. She needs a get. Why the guy's a Goy? No. It could be he's from Naseres Hashvatim. Maybe any Goy might be from the 10 lost tribes. If so, he's a Jew, and his kiddushin's kiddushin. Now, why is Rav Asi concerned? Because according to Rav Asi, if he comes from the 10 tribes, whether from the father or from the mother, is going to be Jewish. That's a great kasha. Look at the next line. What do you mean? The 10 tribes might be big, but they're not as big as all the goyim. If somebody's mekadosh a woman, you should assume he comes from the majority. Says the Gemara, beduchte de kvi. No, there's an important rule. Imagine like this. This plate, okay, we shouldn't make it yet because, imagine there was food on this napkin, okay? Most of the food is kosher and a little bit's treif. A piece, take a piece off or a piece falls off. Oh, I have a piece over here. This piece, I have no idea what it is, right? So I'm going to assume, chances are it came from the majority, and the majority happens to be kosher. But if you're actually holding the thing in front of you, can you actually go and pull a piece? You can't. Because when it's in front of you, the Isser is for sure here. When it's for sure there, you can't ignore it. Each piece is like 50-50. Once a piece is over here, so when I look at this piece, there's no definite Isser in front of me, so I can make believe it doesn't exist. I follow majority. But if it's all in front of you, you can't ignore it. It's there somewhere. Kol kavu, whenever it's set in front of you, it's treated as 50-50. So the Gemara is saying if you go to a place where the 10 tribes actually live, right, then you can't ignore them and say, yeah, I'll follow the majority, because they are there somewhere.
Why is the only concern for Ravasi which cares about the father also? I'm saying.
That's very good. We're going to see in a few lines. But anyway, so now the Gemara wants to know, so where are they? There's a big difference. If they're Mekadesh, a woman in New York, we'll follow the majority. So then, where are you concerned that it's 50-50? In which one? Kyrgyzstan and then whatever it's called, where? So the Gemara says, the Amar of Abba Barkana, look, it says in the pasuk, we saw number 1, Vayanchem, he led them in Chalach and Chavor, Nahar Goiz and Arei Madai. What are these places? Chalach ze Chilozin. Chalach is Chilozin. I even brought an art scroll just because, just to get a bit of an idea of what some of these places are. Chilozin is a name of a river. It's a river. We don't know which river, but Chalach is a river. So they're living next to a river. The next place in the pasuk was Chavor. Look at the Chavor zu Chadayev. What's Chadayev? So they say here, an area southeast of Lake Van in what is today northern Iraq.
Saddam Hussein was a shevet.
It was a kingdom known to antiquity as Adi Abin.
When was that?
That was around the same time. That's what during his conquest. That's why he knocked out the 10 tribes. In his mind, he wasn't stopped knocking off the 10 tribes. He did it to the whole world. Sanchev wanted everyone to feel like strangers, so he mixed up everybody. He tried to come down to the Yidden as well in by Yerushalayim, but Chizkiah was king and a miracle happened. Sanchev was unsuccessful. But upon him, Chadayev, they say here, it's an area in northern Iraq. Okay. The third place is Nahar Goizen, the river of Goizen. That's what the pasuk says. So the Gemara says, what's that? Zug Ginzak. What's Ginzak? Ginzak. It's thought to be northeast Syria on the Kabur River. They don't bring a source to that, so they also get it. Now Va'arei Madai, the cities of Madai, Zu Chamdan v'Chevroisel, Chamdan and Chevroisel. Chamdan's a city in western Iran. So these places aren't that far from Eretz Yisrael. The Omri law, and some say Zu Nihar v'Chavroiseha. A city called Nihar. So the Gemara says Chavroisel, Man. What are the neighboring towns of Nihar? So Shmuel said these were cities they knew at the time. Kerech, Mushchi, Chidki, Dumakia, and Rabbi Yochanan v'Kulon l'Psul. Rabbi Yochanan says, okay, all of them are unfit. Fine. Let's go to the next line. So Rav Yehuda, so this din that we quoted from Rav Asi was actually a din that Rav Yehuda quoted in his name. So says Rav Yehuda, Ki Amrise Kamei Shmuel, when I told this to Shmuel, Shmuel said, no. Shmuel said, if a Yiddish father lives with a Goyish woman, the kid's a Goy. Bincha haba min Yisraelis kori bincha. That if it's a Goy lives with a Jewish woman, the kid's a Jew, like we said. But ve'ein bincha haba min oivedes kechavim kori bincha. But if it's a Yiddish father lives with a Goyish woman, the kid's a Goy. Ela b'nah, rather it follows the Goyish mother. So Shmuel says, what's the problem? As if someone comes from Naseres Hashvatim, even if his father's from Naseres Hashvatim, but this guy's a Goy, because you always follow the mother. So you asked, fine, but maybe from the maternal link you have Goyim that come from them. So Va'ika Bonas Frek Gemara, what about the daughters? So Amar Ravina Shma Mina,
It likely doesn't matter in this case.
and Ravina says that we know that Ben Bitcha Abomin Evekachavim Kari Bincha. That if your daughter marries a Goy and they have a kid, your Eniklach's a Jew. So then, according to everyone, any Goy could be from Aseres HaShvatim and be Jewish, because from the mother. So Gemiri, the Gemara gives like this: Benasa Dahudara, all the Jewish women that were part of the exiled 10 tribes, it's Storu. Their wombs were torn apart; they were unable to have kids. So all of the 10 tribes that went into exile, all the men that had kids were from Goyish women, and therefore Shmuel is saying that there are no Jewish Einiklach from the 10 tribes.
Wow. Then their takas.
That's wild. That's wild, right. Okay, well, yeah.
That's the...
Right, not that they were all killed, but yeah. Yeah.
They're done. They don't exist. They don't be killed. They don't
The
exist.
child doesn't mean every single woman. There's none of them. It could be the amount was so insignificant. But Ikka da Amri, here's a whopper. Some say a different version of the events. Ki Amri say that when Rav Yehuda said it to Shmuel, Amalei Shmuel said, the Chachamim stripped the 10 tribes from their Jewish identity. Loizazu Mishom, the rabbis did not leave, or the 10 tribes didn't leave. Ad Sha'asum Oivdei Kechavim Gemurim. The Chachamim stripped them of the Jewish identity. Shenemar, Bashem Bagoda, they traded against God. Bonim Zorim Yoldu, they had foreign kids. They were stripped. They were stripped of their Jewish identity. So there is a scary marshal, and there are others that say that if somebody lives as a goy for long enough, they can lose their Jewish identity. We have the fakert idea. If you have a goyish mishpacha that ended up amongst the Yidden, and then 100 years later they have 1,000 Jewish, they have 1,000 Eineklach, and they're married to everybody, but the whole family is really goyim. It's the mishpacha shenitma. Once the mishpacha comes absorbed amongst the Yidden, they become Jewish.
Wow.
You can have goyim become a Yidden without gerus. If such a thing happens, that it was if somebody today punked their mother's mother, going back 500 years, Taka actually wasn't Jewish. But once the mishpacha has been part of the Yidden for so long, they become Jewish. They become Jewish. So
Gerus is just something you have to accept upon
What makes
yourself.
them Jewish?
because they become absorbed, they
Yeah, that's
become part
actually a
of
very good point.
They become absorbed.
Gerus is only if they accept upon yourself.
So which Rabbanim made them into goyim?
Oh, made them do tefillah and everything like that.
No, it's the rice you have to go through gerus.
Yeah?
Yeah. We learn it from the
Can't
Yidden by
do it
Matan
yourself?
You have to have a bezdin.
Yeah.
You have to have a bezdin, yeah.
Is
Yeah,
this a
yeah.
Torah halach?
There was a shaila, but some say that Rus and Arpa went through gerus actually because the Shvus come to the Megillah of Rus. Some say how they Megayer in front of Machlon and Killian and their father Elimelech. They were a bezdin, and that's it. The truth is, the Imois were Megayer. Sora was.
weird.
Anyway, that's already
You
whole
can't
story.
make your own, like who you're gonna
It's a
marry.
different shit.
It
The next
seems
year
like
is about
a
gerus.
bit-
Well, there's a whole sug in Yavamas. If a person's Megayer l'shem marriage is the gerus good
No, but for their own marriage.
for your own marriage.
Because all of them were stripped from their Yiddishkeit, so therefore.
So therefore Shmuel's saying, if they're Mekadosh a woman is garnish vert, it won't make a difference. So just like you can have a Yiddish family, which were goyim and become Yidden by osmosis, you can have fakert. If Yidden throw off their Yiddishkeit and for so long they're living amongst goyim,
So
they
all
can
those-
lose their Yiddish identity. I will tell you though that the Ritva on this Gemara famously says they were only considered goyim as far as marriage. Because whenever you're Mekadosh a woman, you're Mekadosh Kedas Moshe Yisrael.
Right.
It's called Adai to the Rabbanon. It's on the condition that the rabbis are happy with the marriage, and therefore they were able to cancel and invalidate any such marriages.
That's very interesting because, like in Spain, they've done like tests, like
There's
DNA
a very
tests,
big difference.
and they say like a quarter of the population has Sephardic
Mental, it's a
Jewish
very big difference.
blood.
Can you say it's the mother's all the way
Yes,
back?
there's
It identifies
probably
the
there's,
mother's
pro-
mother.
there's
South
probably
America,
there's
the-
probably
the quarter
enough
of the population
mothers. So I guess according to this, they wouldn't be Jewish.
South
Mental, it's a
America,
very
same
big
thing.
difference.
Well, again, according to even those that learned they were stripped of their Yiddishkeit, many say it was only the 10 tribes,
Not Jewish, but they
not anybody else. No. Many say that it was only the 10 tribes that were stripped, and never ever happened again in history. There's a lot. It's a major sugya in halach. It's a major sugya. But I'm just.
They're not.
All the Muranos,
Meaning, if you say that they can't have kiddushin, then no problem. They can't have kiddushin, but they can still have kids. And their kids are
Thousands.
even if they're mamzerim, remember what
Muranos,
Right.
about
If you
10,000
learn like the Ritva, exactly, it was
10,000
only. But the Marshal might learn that they were
Marshal
stripped
did
of their
it.
Yiddishkeit. But even he says it was only them that generation.
Ah, right, not after.
It was a knas chum made just for that generation.
Okay, yeah.
Not anyhow. But what's fascinating here is that the Gemara Mamish identifies all the 4 cities. The problem is again, what does it mean today? Syria, Iran, does it? Anyhow, but listen, we're not done. In fact, we're just beginning. What time is it? Okay. All right, fine. Go back to the previous page. So number 4. This is also a major piece for the puzzle. The Gemara says in number 4 the following story. We said Yoshio was the last autonomous king of the Yidden. In the 18th year of his reign, The Kohen Gadol's name was Chilkiyahu. According to many, it was Yirmiyahu's father. He was making renovations because the Beis Hamikdash was forlorn from previous kings who had, abandoned. There was, at some point, there was mold growing all over the Mizbeach. What?
Did he live for a really long time?
Chilkiyahu? Not that I know of. But when he was renovating, he came across an old Torah scroll. It was a Torah that Moshe wrote. Moshe wrote 13 scrolls, one for each Shevet, and one to be centralized in the Beis Hamikdash. And he found Moshe's scroll. He opens it up and he sees it was turned to a pasuk in Parshas Kisavai, in the Klalos, where it says, "Hashem will take you and your king to a foreign land." This was a bad omen. So he sends a message straight away to the king Yoshiyahu. Yoshiyahu said, send a group of people to the Neviah Chulda and ask her what this means. So the Gemara wants to know, Yoshiyahu, Gufa, Yoshi himself, Heichi Shavak Yirmiyah, why didn't he send the entourage of the delegation to Yirmiyah? How could he send them to Chulda, not to Yirmiyah? Why would you choose Chulda instead of Yirmiyah? So there's two opinions. Armi Dvei Rab Shilai, Mipnei Shahanoshim Rachmanis, and women are compassionate. It works like this. When a Navi receives prophecy, beforehand they daven to Hashem that they should receive the prophecy, and also their tefillah, they can ask for mercy that the prophecy should be sweeter. Because women are compassionate, they were hoping, Yeshua was hoping that Chulda would beseech the Eibishter for a merciful prophecy. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, a different pshat. You want to know why I didn't go to Yirmiyah? Lo Yavazim, he wasn't there. Yirmiyah went on a journey. Shahalach lahachzir aseres hashvatim. Yirmiyah, who was right before the Churban, and then he lived obviously during the Churban, but at this point, which was, let's say, 30 years before the Churban roughly, he went to collect the 10 tribes. Now, was he successful? Umino, how do I know they did come back? It's a beautiful raya. It's a pasuk in Yechezkel. Yechezkel was a little bit younger than Yirmiyah. According to many, he was Yirmiyah's son. Yechezkel the prophet. And this prophecy he gave, Yirmiyah was also a Kohen. We said Yirmiyah was a son of Chilkiyahu, who was the Kohen Gadol. They were all Kohenim. In fact, Yechezkel was called Yechezkel ben Buzi, the son of Buzi. That means he was the son of the man that was ridiculed. Because Yirmiyah was ridiculed. Why was Yirmiyah ridiculed? Because he was an Einokul of Rachav, the Zaina, from one side. Rachav married Yeshua. So although the big yichus from Yeshua, but the Baba is Rachav. They told Yirmiyah, you come from the 7 nations. Your Baba was a Zaina. And you're busy telling us that because we're acting improper, God's going to cast us out of the Holy Land? Who you? So the Yechezkel was Ben Buzi because his father Yirmiyah was belittled.
Yeah.
Yeshua married Rachav.
Yeshua was a Kohen?
No. From one side he came from. Yeah. So right before the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash, Yechezkel gave a prophecy. Usually by Yovel you get your fields back. If you sold a field or a house, you get it back by Yovel. But Yechezkel said Yovel's going to stop. When most of the Yidden leave Eretz Yisrael, there's no more Yovel. And Yechezkel says, "Hamoicher el amemka lo yashuv." The seller will not be reunited with his sale. You should know Yovel's going to stop. Wait a second. Yovel stopped 100 years before that. If you need the majority of Yidden to be on the Holy Land, so when the 10 tribes were knocked off by Sancheriv, l'chayr there's no Yovel. After Yovel batal v'navim isnabalov sheyibatal, could it be that Yovel already stopped? It stopped 100 years before, and Yechezkel like, I have news. There's no news. Here, so wake up and smell the coffee, Yechezkel. It's old news. So you see from there, says the Gemara, Elamalamed that Yirmiyah Hichziron and Yoshiyahu, the son of Ammon, ruled upon them.
It's a great proof.
Yeah. So they came back. Yoshiyahu was the king. When this Sefer Torah was found by
Chilkiyahu. Over everybody then.
Yeah, so in other words, it was a reunion of all 12 tribes.
I feel like that would be bigger news than the Navi, though. No,
it is
like
massive
it'll be
news.
mainstream.
Well, it didn't last very long because about 25, 30 years later, all the Yidden were kicked out of Eretz Yisrael by the
Yeah, but this is humongous. Like, how is it not in the mainstream media?
Maybe not
It's
all.
Megillah Daf Yadala. What do you mean? It's not a secret. It's also in Erchen. It's also in the end of Erchen. So that will say who gets to the end of Erchen. It's Megillah. It's an Agadat of Megillah. This is not a secret, my friend.
Big news when he found the secretary also. So hold on,
So hold on. Wait a second.
Being not, but you feel like
Hold on, wait. So wait, this is major. That means Yirmiyah brought them all back. So the whole 10 tribe thing was only for 100 years. They all came back, they were with us, and then when Nebuchadnezzar cast us into Bavel, they came. And then they would have just been with us forever. So the whole story ended. Befrat, go back to number 2. According to Rabbi Eliezer Meiler, Rabbi Eliezer says they are coming back. Rabbi Kiva said they ain't coming back. What do you mean they ain't coming back? They came back before Rabbi Kiva's times. He wasn't aware of this story.
Right.
So this is a major kasha. So here we have another debate between Rashi and the Ramban. Another debate. And this is also hugely important. Rashi holds Yirmiyah only brought back a few of them. Ktsasan. He only brought back some. Those some came back, and they've been with us ever since. And that's why that helps to understand better what we said before. That that in the future there's going to be 12 tribes, and Rashi holds that 10 tribes ain't coming back, but there are so many of them amongst us, not just those that deflected during the time when they were in the Holy Land,
So
but when Yirmiyah brought back.
Why does he have to say that some people snuck to the south?
He doesn't say it. People say it for him. Right. But based on what Rashi himself says in Megillah, you have a much better answer. Some of them, they would what?
Why did they do Yevil?
That's a great kasha. So the Ramban asked that on Rashi. You have to have the majority of people. So the verse like this, Rashi could hold, you had the whole of Yehuda, Binyamin, Levi. You had Miktsasan of the rest, but the rest weren't very big nations anyway. Yehuda was, so it could be you had majority. But the Ramban says you have to have the majority of each Shevet. So therefore the Ramban disagreed with Rashi. And the Ramban says they all came back. But he says the most wild thing. He says, you know what happened? So the Ramban says when Yeshua was king, they were all back. They all came back. Story's over. But when Nebuchadnezzar came and destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash, right, lots of Yidden died. But then Nebuchadnezzar took the rest where? To Bavel. That was Yehuda, Binyamin, and Levi. The other tribes said, once we're leaving, we're going back to where we were before. We loved it there. So they went, there were 2 exiles.
Wow.
There were 2 exiles of the 10 tribes. Fascinating.
One was on their own.
Yeah, they chose to go there. They chose to go there. They're lost today because had they gone to Bavel, they would still be here, according to Ramban. According to Rashi, it was only Miktsasan that came back, and they're still around, although unidentifiable. So that's also a major, very important debate. All right. So this is just a bit of, these are basically the main Makairis in Gemara and the main Rishonim.
Where's the river, the rocks?
About the 10 tribes. What does that have to do with Sambatyon? So go to number 5.
Yeah.
Go to number 5.
So we're backtracking.
We're jumping around. This is not a. Number 5. To Gemara Sanhedrin Samachay Amud Beis. Turnus Rufus was a Roman governor in Eretz Yisrael. He was appointed by the Roman Emperor Hadrian. Turnus Rufus was a sworn anti-Semite, and he constantly had vikuchim, debates with Rabbi Akiva. In fact, every night he would come home in a dismal mood. His wife would say, "What happened?" He said, "I lost again." So she told him, "I'll take care of him." She was a beautiful woman, she put on her beautiful clothes, she tried to seduce Rabbi Akiva. And the story is that Rabbi Akiva, he spat, and he cried and he laughed. She said, "What's this?" He said, "I spat because your beauty doesn't talk to me. I cried because one day the beauty that you have will disappear when you're on the ground," right? Why I laughed, I can't tell you. Years later, when Turnus Rufus died, she was Megayah and Rabbi Akiva married her. He told, "That's why I left. I knew that one day would be husband and wife."
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's what he lived
But
on.
the beauty didn't talk then.
What?
Like Akiva's first wife is the one that let him learn.
Yeah.
That was a different
That
one.
was the.
That was his first wife.
There's some lesson here. I'm trying to figure this
That was
out.
not her.
There's lots of problems with the story.
one didn't let him
That
learn.
it's recorded that Turnus Rufus was the one that executed Rabbi Akiva. So some say that was his son. There was Turnus Rufus Senior, Turnus Rufus
Executing his
Junior.
stepfather?
Now what's funny is I think this story might have happened with the junior. I'm just guessing just because of what it says. Turnus Rufus asked Rabbi Akiva. He asked him, "Ma yoim mi yomayim." What's the difference of Shabbos or any other day? Here, there's plenty of. I have plenty.
So you can't
I don't
kill
need 10 of
the
each of
stepfather.
them.
Probably kill
So-
the stepfather.
No, I'll tell you the reason why it might be. So, he asked him, what makes Shabbos special? Rabbi Kiva said, Ma gever meguvrin. What makes you special? You have two hands, you have a nose and ear like everybody else. Why are you up as a governor? Amalei, he said, Demari tzavi, my master desires me. Rabbi Kiva said, Shabbos nami, Shabbos as well. What makes it special is because God shows it to be so. So Amalei said, no, hachi kam min Allah. Tunas Rufus said, you know what I mean? How do you know today's Shabbos? Maybe you're off. Maybe some time of the history you flipped Saturday and Friday. Maybe we're all a day off. Who said the Hoidna Shabbat? Who said today's Shabbos? So Amalai, he said, Rabbi Kiva said, Nahar Sambatyon Yechiach. The river of Sambatyon will prove. So Rashi in the Gemara says there's a river called Sambatyon or Sambatyon. A whole week, it's casting rocks. It's perilous to cross. You'll die. It's mamish dangerous. But on Shabbos, it's miraculous. It calms down. In other sources, it says a mist, a fog, descends upon the river, and it's quite wide. It's quite wide river, but a whole week there's flux, there's rocks flying. In Medrash Rabbit quotes the story that Tunas Rufus said, "What? You're proving to me something from Sambatyon? Were you over there? I was never there. No one knows where it is. What type of? It's not a verifiable proof. How could you say that?" Rabbi Kiva said, Baal Oiv Yechiach. I'll prove to you from Baal Oiv. When you want to bring people up from the ground, bring the dead, it doesn't work on Shabbos. So the Medrash says that Tunas Rufus tried doing it by his father. Every day he was able to do it, but not on Shabbos. So he asked his father, Tatze, what, when you died you became Jewish, when you started keeping Shabbos? So his father said, a whole week I'm judged. Shabbos is a day of rest. That's why I was untouchable on Shabbos. But then Rabbi Kiva said a third thing. Kivroi shel aviv yochiach. Your father's caver will prove. A whole week there's smoke coming out of your father's caver. He's burning. But ein malo oshem b'Shabbos. There's no smoke coming out of it on Shabbos. On Saturday, in other words, Rabbi Kiva is saying, this is how we know that we got the right day. Well, I don't know. It could be that the Zayd was also rotten.
No, but how would he know about the grave?
This is like the original. It's like
no, it could be it was Tunas Rufus' father.
The story could have happened at either point. Father before or after.
He knew that his grave was having smoke. So
No, it could be that Tunas Rufus, his father, the Zayda. Could be about the Zayda. Stami was also in Russia. Now, what's this river of Sambatyon? The only real source we have in Medrash is this story. It comes up a few times in Medrash and Gemara. So where is it, Take?
Weird proofs.
And what's the
first time that it's recorded?
Well, how else should he prove?
I don't know. Weird proofs.
Maybe Sunday's supposed to be Shabbos.
Where
have to
I don't know how to
supernatural.
prove it, but it's weird.
Well, the way to prove it from an Arable perspective is how do we know you're really governor? How do we know the letter isn't forged? How do we know anything's real?
The guy wanted concrete proof.
Yeah, but the guy said his whole thing was I'm governor. But I'm saying like,
where's the first time that the Sambatyon was brought up?
Yeah.
This is the only place in Gemara. Yeah.
This is it.
Now, hold on. We're gonna see. There's a. You know what? Go to number 7 because you asked. Go to the. We're jumping to number 7 on the next page. Number 7. There's a Targum Yonasan ben Uziel in Parshas Kisisa. Now we know there's a recorded story in Chazal that when Nebuchadnezzar brought the Leviim to Bavel, he asked them to sing a song. And what did they say? Right? How could we sing? So we know that they bit off, the Leviim bit off their thumbs so they wouldn't be able to play. Says the Targum Yonasan, something else happened.
Play the harp with your thumbs.
Baram, this is Hashem is talking to Moshe. That pasuk over there in Kisisa. Baram, however, now it's from Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, who was one of the Tanoim. He actually never wrote it. Yonasan ben Uziel only wrote on Nevi'im. The Targum on Chumash, which is called Yonasan ben Uziel, was not written by him. It was written by a different Tana with no name. And the printers at some point in time just named it Yonasan ben Uziel. But it was written by some Tana, so it goes back 2,000 years. Minach Yifku Nuchlusin, the Tzaddik and Hashem tells Moshe that from you many, a big population of righteous will come forth. Kvel Kol Amach, around your nation, Abed Prishan, I will make a separation, Lohain. I will separate your nation, the Yidden, from the other Goyim. When? Bisman de Yehochen b'Shivyasa. When they go in captivity, al Narvas Bavel, to the rivers of Bavel, by Nebuchadnezzar, Asa lekinun mitamon, I will remove them from there. Ashrinon, I will place them in Legev, Lenahar, Sambatyon, to the other side of the Sambatyon River. So this is nothing to do with the 10 tribes. This is Shevet Levi. At the time Nebuchadnezzar exiled the Yidden to Bavel, they were called Bnei Moshe because they said that they come from Moshe, but Moshe was also a Levi. So these, a group of Levim, were moved to the other side of Sambatyon. So here you have a Tanaic source, not about the 10 tribes, but about Yidden being taken magically to the other side of the Sambatyon River. Now, who said the 10 tribes have anything to do with the Sambatyon? So look at number 6. Go to the previous page. Number 6 is a well-known Ramban. In Parashat, by the flipping of the page, I'm making sure no one falls asleep. You're so busy. This page, that page, keeps you guys busy. So there's a pasuk. Tell the Bachram that.
I don't know if to give them these years.
So there's a pasuk in Parshas Hazinu. Amarti afayem. I said afayem. We'll see what that means. Ashbisa, I will destroy may enosh from mankind zichroim, their remembrance. What does the word afayem mean? So the Ramban brings a couple of pirushim, but then he says the pshat that he likes is afayem means where are they? Hashem says I will put the Yidden in such a circumstance that people will say, yeah, afayem, where are they? Or Ephraim. So says the Ramban number 6, Aleim Gam, people will say about them, Af, as in also Ehem, where are they? Loimar, that Moshe was giving a prophecy in Parshas Hazinu that at a certain time, something will happen to certain Yidden, namely, Loimar Shalo Yishar Lem Shem V'She'er, there will be no remembrance begoyim amongst the goyim, V'lo Yivodim Mekoimim Aye, no one will know where they are. Which again either means that they're taka hiding somewhere, or that they've just been absorbed amongst the goyim and they're unidentifiable. Vihine, says the Ramban, you know what Moshe was talking about? Yirmais, Moshe was referring the Golus to the Golus of the 10 tribes. Where did they go? Lenahar Goizin, the river of Goizin. We saw in number 1, the Pasukim Malachim, the river of Goizin. We saw in number 9, the Gemara in Yevamos identifies Goizin as Ginzik. And in the article they said Ginzik was what? Either Iran or Syria, one of those places. Says the Ramban, no. Hu shachachom kerin Sambatyon. The river of Goizin mentioned in Nach is the Sambatyon river. That's where the 10 tribes went. Nikra Goizin from a lashon of, he brings 2 rayas that Yogaz means to fly away or to be removed. In the next 9, he says, Ha'ayim dim achrav, those that are behind the Sambatyon, musarim mibnei adam, are removed from mankind. And why is it called Sambatyon? Look at the next line, sorry about the gap. Mipnei shvisasa b'Shabbos. Since the river rests on Shabbos, it's called Sambatyon. How does Sambatyon mean Shabbos? Sabota. Ki yoyim ha-Shabbos b'loshen hahu sabot. In that language, Shabbos is called Sabbat, kashahu ba'arvit, like it is in Arabic. So where did the yoin come from? V'nohu b'lshonim, in their language, the custom is l'haisiv b'torm yoin. For the complete description, you add yoin. Azuvya, churiya, and muliya, milia, and bilia, right? You always add the yoin to what? Exactly. The chen harbe. So the Ramban writes black and white. Nahar Goizin is the Sambatyon, and that's where the 10 tribes went.
Iraq.
It says in Gemara.
So
Yeah, where?
hold on, wait. So
It didn't say shooting rocks.
It doesn't.
It didn't say any shooting rocks.
L'chayre won't exist today.
Why?
The reason that it was shooting rocks was in order to make a
Where did you say
division.
shooting rocks?
Hold on, that it was a Rashi said in the Gemara in
You said
Megillah.
it earlier.
No, we did, it's not on the paper, but on number 5 with Tunashut Rabbi Akiva, Rashi there says Sambatyon as shooting rocks. The purpose was to be a divider between the Yidden on one side and the rest of the world. But if today they've been absorbed amongst the Goyim, there are no people on the other side of the river, so today it'll be a regular river. In fact, the Vilna Gaon holds is the Ganges, the Ganges River in India.
Why?
That leans.
Why?
So it depends.
Indians, there's a lot of Jews that are.
That's because there's a ship down there. We know that for a fact, no?
Yeah,
That
there
was
was a
The
ship
Indian
that
ship that
crashed.
landed there, crashed there with the 10 families in Kolkata, I think.
Yeah,
So
Isn't that
now-
documented where the
that,
Jews
yeah,
come
they
from?
came from like Algeria or something.
Yeah.
What year did that happen?
Like the 1300s.
It was one of the 4 ships, no? The 4,
No, it wasn't one of the 4. It was
No?
later.
No,
It was
no.
later.
Oh, the 4 captives. The
No,
4.
it wasn't. No, it was later.
That was in the
No,
900s.
that was
in the end of the
It
900s.
was later.
There
The
were a
Portuguese-
group of people in
the Portuguese,
India.
when they took over part
There
of
were a
India,
group
they
of people in
actually-
India that they called themselves the Bnei Menashe. There were a group of India. There's a long story. I'm not gonna get into it now, but that they, for many years that they had shuls and everything.
That's the only piece we didn't do.
Fine.
Eight.
Hold on. So
Those are just direct
hold on.
Jews.
So when you think about where they went, you have some pieces of the puzzle. The Ramban says Nahar Goy in the Sambatyon. We saw in number 3 it was Afriki in the mountains of Salug. In number 9 it has other identification markers. Join me in number 8 for a moment. Join me in number 8 for a moment.
8, number 8.
This is a Maharal in his sefer called Netzach Yisrael. The Maharal wrote very important Sfarim. It's not such an easy read, but let's have a look at what he says in number 8. Ulefichach, therefore, says the Maharal, Tzarchlem, you have to say. When Rabbi Eliezer says that the 10 tribes are going to come back, Hachi Kamar. When Rabbi Eliezer says that Rabbi Eliezer holds they're going to come back, the La'asid Yechsru, they're going to come back with the rest of the exiles. Ato Gamkein Heim Besuch Shara Goliath. Even now, they're amongst other exiles, right? They're dispersed around the world. When Rabbi Eliezer said they're coming back, he meant in the future they're going to come back with all the dispersed Yidden. Because Mitchila, in the beginning, Hegla Oisam.
When you say they're coming back, it's not when Mashiach comes. I'll be cautious, right?
Right. In the opinion, we learned the debate of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. Yeah, L'chayr is talking about here when Mashiach comes. Yeah. Mitchila, in the beginning, Hegla Oisam, Hashem exiled them on condition, knowing that in the site they should be able to come back with the other Goliaths. Shehegla Oisam Mitchila, he sent them first to Africa or to the mountains of Saluk. That's what we saw in number 3. But afterwards, Hetikum Imkaimam. So Maharal says, even going with number 3, that they went to Africa or the mountains of Salug, that was their first destination. They're not still there. So even if you do find out where those places are, it isn't worth much, because they're not there anymore. They went elsewhere to be in other places of exile. People always move, right? Ulamanda Amar Einam Chayzrim. Rabbi Kiva said they're not coming back. Those 10 tribes. Holchul and the Takadis V'nevdum in ours, they're gone forever. V'zeh Sha'amar Ein Asidin Lachzer. And this that Rabbi Kiva holds that they ain't coming back when Mashiach comes. Koloimar, that means Mitchila, already from the outset, when Hashem exiled them, it wasn't on condition they'll come back, but it was on condition that they'll be lost forever. But in Mikol Makom, he says, Chas v'sholem, Ein loymar she'yechaser shevet miYisrael. Even according to Rabbi Kiva, you can't say there's going to be a full shevet missing. Rak k'moi shamana, we said already, ki chazru b'mei Yirmiyah, and Yoshua was a king upon them. And according to Rashi, we said it was part of them. According to Rambam, we said they all came back. V'loi diber, and Rabbi Kiva, when he says they're lost forever, Rak is only talking about those that didn't come back in the time of Yirmiyah. Imasidim lachser, will they come back in the future? And for that, Rabbi Kiva says, no, they're never going to come back. So this is what we said before. If you stick the things together, that
So if they're never coming back, then you are losing tribes.
no. So because the Gemara said in Megillah that Yirmiyah already brought some of them back. So Rashi said part of them. Part of them came back. Some of them stayed. When
So
Rabbi
what-
Kiva
by the
said
time
in
the
number
Mashiach,
2,
then
The ones that
the
stayed,
ones that
they
came
get
back
food.
are together with us. The ones that
meaning they'll be
stayed,
clear summation, so they'll be back.
no, they're never going to come back. According to Rabbi Kiva, they're gone
the ones
forever.
that came back, the few that did come back.
They'll be, you know, they're Einaklach that are around, you know, when Mashiach
They'll
comes,
be
they're going to come
the
back to Eretz Yisrael. Yeah. V'oid Yirid also seems the Hachi Pirushai. He says, Itchila, he sent them to Africa. Einoi Africa shu yidu alon. It's not the Africa that we know of today. It's a Makom de Poski Hare Chayshich. It's a place which is divided by the mountains of darkness.
Which is also in Africa.
Well, let's see. V'zen nikra gamken Africa. It's also called Africa, but it's not in Africa. Because it's Muchach b'Masechta Tamid, by the story of Alexander the Great. He spoke to the elders of the Yidden, And he said, "But Ina Lamezla, I want to go to Africa." And they said, "You can't, because the mountains of darkness will get in your way." So he said, "Shemami, no, you see from there, you can't travel there. But Africa, Hayadua, the Africa that we know of today, what mountains of darkness are there in Africa?" So the Maharal is saying and I don't know anyone said it before him, but he says very clearly that just like it says in Masechta Tamid, Alexander wanted to go to Africa, and the Chomim warned him against it because of the mountains of darkness. Ultimately, he went in the end. But says the Maharal, the Africa that we know of today, what mountains of darkness? So, what are the Hari Chayshich? So many say it's the Himalayas, the tallest mountains that we have, which is north of India, right? That area. And the Sambatyon, which is in the same place, would be the Ganges River. So that appears to be the opinion of the Vilna Gaon. Many hold, right, very far.
So the Sherpas
it's all the
are
way in the
Jewish?
northeast and Ganges.
Okay, but it's that Gabi Eretz Yisrael, it's like all that part of the world. It's all that part of the world. Others hold the Sambatyon.
Why wouldn't they come back at the time of the Mashiach? It's amazing. Everybody is every Jew is.
You missed us.
So we spoke. The first vote's a machlok. No. There's a debate. So we said they were stripped. The Gemara says in Yevamos they were stripped of their Jewish identity.
So my question, I heard you saying
only them.
But is there ever in history anywhere that
they're the only place that they were stripped of their Jewish identity?
Any other history where Jews were stripped from their identity?
No, it's the only place. He mentions the only place.
So what's the end here?
So
wait, to get to the Ganges, you don't have
Va'al kol panim, he says, regardless, lo Yehoy Hashem Yisparach mafish osim Yisrael, Hashem didn't completely separate them. Right, he threw them from Eretz Yisrael either to the right, so if you're facing east, then your right is south, or the tzad sof and tzad smol. Listen, it's very hard to decipher what the Maharal means, but this paragraph is obviously a very important piece of the puzzle. He said Africa is not the Africa, but he also spells out a couple things. He says even wherever they went to in number 3, to Africa or the mountains of Salug, they weren't there for that long. They definitely moved from place to place. And he also says that those that returned in the times of Yirmiyah, like Rashi says, some of them returned, they will for sure come back when Mashiach comes, and those will be the 12 gates in Yechezkel. Those that didn't come back are lost forever. That's all in the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Remember, Rabbi Lezer says they will come back. So this is just a bit of the background. What time is it?
22.
Good, now we can get started. Okay, so listen. So I got to say this story because this is there were people over the years who came and testified about themselves of coming from the 10 tribes and giving testimonies. Most famous was Eldad Hadani. It was in the 880s, and he came in the 880s. That was the year. In the 880s, long time ago.
Right before the Spanish.
So
1980.
A long time ago. Eldad Adoni came and he gave incredible reports. He said that he was from Dan, and he said Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher were all in the same area. Now they were all the Bnei Ashvachas, the kids of Bil and Zilp. They were all in one area. And he said that the Sambatyon divides between them and a group of people called the Bnei Moshe. The Bnei Moshe were Leviim. How did he get there? How did they get there? So he told a fascinating story, which is Mamish the Targum Yenis we saw in number 7. Eldad Adoni said, and when he told the people were incredulous, they didn't believe it, he said that when those Leviim were taken by Nebuchadnezzar to Bavel, they bit off their thumbs so they couldn't play the instruments, a cloud came and Pasha transported them to the other area of this, to the other side of the Sambatyon.
They didn't mish with each other. They didn't.
So, and he says that the shortest part of the Sambatyon is 60 amas, 30 meters in the shortest part, and he says that at times when they're on one side, we're on the other, we can even scream, over the rocks and the water, and you can hear each other. And he gave lots of strange testimonies. And they sent a letter to Rab Tzemach Gaon, who was the big Gaon in Bavel at the time.
Where did he say it was?
This is the time of the Yainim?
800.
Yeah, in the 880s. It's not clear where he said it. He called it Eretz HaChavila, the land of Chavila, which is, we have that in Parshas Bereshis, the land of Chavila, right? It's one of the 4 rivers coming from Gan Eden. We also don't know exactly. So he quoted lots of halachas that were very strange. He said a woman's not allowed to shecht. He said if you shecht before davening, the shchita's treif. You know, we know the sheikhim always shecht before davening, in order that on the same day the flesh can make its way to the butcher. And he gave lots of funny halachas. But the Rishonim quote him. In the beginning of Masechta Chulin, all of his funny halachas of shchita are quoted by the Rishonim. Tosfos says, Ivrai said he's wrong, but the Mordechai quotes and he says, those are a Chumra Yesera. He doesn't say it's Bob Meises, he says it's a Chumra and it's not for the regular populace. And Semach Goin said that yes, we can trust what he says. He says some things are off, but listen, when you travel for months in the heat, you're going to forget some things. But in general, he accepted it. And that made lots of waves, that story. But the following story I have to say, because this is Negei Shavuos. There's a minig on Shavuos to say Akdamas. The Alter Rebbe put it in the Siddur. We don't say it, although the Rebbe was seen mumbling the words of Akdamas on Shavuos. The Taz 400 years ago brings that there was a minig, that how would they do it the first day Yom Tov? The Kohen would make the bracha, and the Balkar would start reading, he would say the first pasuk, and then they would start saying Akdamas, they would start saying na 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 na, the whole thing. And the Taz says in the middle of the Kriya, no. Say Akdamas, and then the Kohen should make bracha, and then you learn. You shouldn't do it in the middle of the Kriya. So the El Yerabba, one of the big, he passed away in the early 1700s, Eliyahu Shapiro, he writes no. He says no, it has to be in the middle of the Kriya. He says, because don't you know the story of Akdamas? He says it's written in an old German, he quotes in Ashkenaz, it was in German or Yiddish, old manuscripts as a story, and it took place in the desert, and therefore you have to read the first part that speaks about the desert of Midbar Sinai, in order to set the scene of the desert, and then you say the Akdamas. So what's the story that he's talking about? So stories like this, Bekitzer. It happened in about the year 1100. Around the year 1100. Right after the first crusade. There was a city that was in the desert of Asia, which means Asia. Okay? Somewhere desert in Asia. There was a Jewish community which was under a Goyish, a king, a Christian king, but he was benevolent. He was nice and kind. But there was a Galach who was an anti-Semit, who was a magician. And he was a sorcerer, and he was knocking off people just with his gaze, with his eyesight. The Yidden complained to the king. He called in the Galach, and the Galach says, King, I thought you were a devout Christian. You're softening on the Yidden. He says, let's make a debate. Let any of the Yidden debate me. If I win, I have full control over them. If they win, then they could stay here. That's the deal. So the Yidden were told. At first, the king didn't want to hear of it, but he was persuaded. He buckled. He sends message to the Yidden. You have 3 months. Choose somebody. The Galach made a condition. The Galach said before the debate, whoever's going to be opposing him has to have a standoff in witchcraft before the debate even begins. So the Yidden were at a loss. What are they going to do? This community, which was in a desert in Asia, was not far from the Sambatyon River. They'd never crossed it. It was just too dangerous. Shabbos you can't. It would be Chilul Shabbos for a number of reasons, perhaps. And during the week it was Sukkot. They never went.
But they knew where it was.
And they knew that there were apparently some Yidden across. And they heard that they were some special Yidden. So they thought maybe we should ask them for help. No one here can help us. Let's try our luck. But who's going to cross? So they chose somebody by the name of Rab Meir the Chazan. Rashi quotes him numerous times in Tanakh, in his Pirush. Tosfos quotes him in Rosh Hashanah, and we know he wrote poetry. Tosfos quotes him in Daf Yud Aleph about verifying the day which the Malachim visited Avram in Parshas Vayera. Tosfos says they came, it was the first day Pesach. Avram had the bris on the 13th of Nisan, and 3 days later he had... And Tosfos says, what's my proof? Because of the poem that Rab Meir wrote. He wrote a poem. Rab Meir the Chazan was chosen to cross the Sambatyon. The problem was, how's he going to cross? During the week it's dangerous. He has to cross on Shabbos. Is Chil Shabbos, either there's Tchum or he has to go by boat or this or that. But listen, people's lives are in danger. But how's he going to come back? He would never be allowed to come back because there's no danger for him to recross on Shabbos.
He's saving the Jews.
The other guy
Yeah,
can
but
come
what
back.
about
No. The other guy's going to come back.
the same
He's going to go get help, but why is he
the
coming
same
back?
reason a guy on Shabbos can
So
come back
very
home.
good. That's because of next time. But here there was no next time. There's never going to be another time. So he divorced his wife.
Oh wow.
He said adios. It was nice, and he crossed. And it says we have the whole story printed. It would have been 3-4 pages, but it's all printed. You can see it. The community looked at. They saw him off. And they all got together and they watched Reb Meir walk until he was out of sight. Ultimately, he crosses the Sambatyon and he comes to the other side. And when the Levim that were there, they got hold of him, they said, "You broke Shabbos." They threw him in a jail cell. They were still judging capital punishment in the 1100s. By the way, they didn't sell. They didn't. Hello. These people didn't celebrate Purim. Eldad Adoni said, "Where I come, they don't celebrate Purim because they weren't b'chlal part of the story of Achashverosh."
Either.
What? Yeah, not Chanukah either. Eicha, they got Eicha. How'd they get Eicha? Well, because the Bnei Moshe, they were only exiled to the Sambatyon after the Churban. They got Eicha, but they wouldn't read it. Eldad Adoni said the pain is too much. We've been so far for so long, they couldn't say. Eicha they wouldn't read. Esther they Bechal didn't have. It was Bechal not negayed them. They weren't part of the story. So they threw him in a prison. They said that's you broke Shabbos, but they couldn't kill him because it was Shabbos. You can't. So they waited till Sunday. So they took him. But by then it was too. So they brought him in. He said, "Listen." He told them the whole story. He said, "Oh, Sarkonos Tafashis." So he said, "I need one of you to go back." So they made a girl. The girl fell on a certain tailor. The tailor divorces his wife because he's never going to come back. But the tailor has to wait till the next Shabbos to cross the river because during the week it's impossible. During that week, Reb Meir wrote a beautiful poem. He wrote the Akdamas, and he gave it to the tailor. He said, "When you go on the boat right before Shabbos, put the paper on the boat." And Kachava, the tailor went across, and he met the Yidden. And when the day came for the debate, they went into it was a kind of valley surrounded by trees. The place was packed. And the Galach gets up, and the tailor gets up in front of him, and the Galach stares at him, and he tries to use all of his powers. Nothing to it. The tailor just looks at him back in the eye. So the Galach turns to the king and says, "I want to show you something special." There were 2 huge millstones on the floor. He raises them up in the air, very high in the sky, and then he starts to say, and the things start turning in the sky. Then he asks the tailor, "No, what do you got?" The tailor says, "You see this big tree? I'm going to bend the tree down to the ground. You're going to come, and you're going to hold the tree down. If you want, you could bend the tree and I'll hold it down." The guy said, "No, you bend the tree. Let's see." The tailor goes to the tree. It's a huge tree, and he starts pulling it, he bends the whole thing down. And he's holding the edge, and he tells the Galach, "You ready?" The Galach comes, he starts holding it down, and the tailor's like, "Ready? I'm gonna let go." He lets go, the tree springs back up, the Galach goes flying in the air, right between the 2 millstones that were in, and he gets crushed. And this is the story.
Wait, what's the German? What's the source?
That's how we
The
got
El Yerabba 300 years ago quotes, he says, there's an old German manuscript which has the story, but he believed the story so much that he said that's why you say Akdamas during Kriyas HaTorah. The Taz wanted to abolish the minute because how could he do it in the middle of Kriya? El Yerabba says, no, you have to set the scene, speak about the Midbar. And then
Contemporary
so,
don't talk about this.
What?
Contemporary
You have a real
So is that
showstopper.
where we got Akdamas? Everyone agrees that's where we got
We're gonna
Akdamas?
end over here. We're gonna end over.
What's his name?
You
Doesn't
talk
mention
about
anything.
Moshe.
I know
I
what.
don't
What's
know.
his name? Doesn't Mendel? What's his name? Doesn't mention anything about this. That's wrong.
I'll just tell you one thing. Menashe ben Yisrael was a very interesting Yid. 400. He got the Yidden back into England 400 years ago. So he says that he heard from testimony from his father and others that in Portugal there was a guy who had a tube of sand from the Sambatyon, and a whole week the sand was jumping around in the tube. Friday night the sand would calm down, and he would go to the Muslim mosques where they celebrate Friday, and he would walk around with the tube. It was a shock. And he'd walk around with the tube. And then he would go to the Yiddish Gegend, which was full of Marranos in the early 1600s in Portugal. And he would say, "You guys are really Yidden." They say, "Well, we're Yidden, we're Christians." He said, "You guys are ashamed that you're Yidden? Look at this tube. Look at this tube. This proves you guys are right." The sand, a whole week, would jump up and down, and Shabbos it would stop.
Wow.
This quote in his farm.
But I don't understand. That's where we all agree. That's where the Akdomas comes from.
Well,
Are
it
we
was,
missing anything? Any quotes we're missing? Anybody?
And from
Israel, something, I don't know.
yeah, there's lots of it.
What's his name?
Listen to
Alright,
this.
give me your cash app.
Chaim.
Chaim, what's his name?
What?
From,
Chaim Kanievsky?
Let's go.
He's pushed him. No, it's a count. You said? This year's over. Everyone left. It's not part of the year. It's not part of the year. It's not part of the year. The year's over.
No.
The year's over. It's not part of the year.
afterwards and see you didn't comment on the shooting.
I didn't.
I fell for it.
I don't understand something. Where did Akdomas come from?
No, it was written by this Reb Meir because in the beginning of each stanza
I
there's
just
a
wanted
hint
to
to
from
his
the beginning
name.
that no matter
He
what,
definitely
I'm
wrote
going
it.
to say his name.
Reb Meir the Chazan.
Yeah.
That's part of the suit that has the
times of Rashi.
He's the one who wrote it.
I was
Yeah,
asking
it has his
you.
name in the beginning of
I was
Akdomas.
looking at you to see if you're picking up on
The
what I'm
question is
saying.
whether he wrote it on the way out of the Sambatyon, not that also we don't know for sure.
This is more
But
of
he
a
wrote
mainstream
it. What's the
story.
reason? What is it for?
What does it speak about?
Yeah. I've never said it. I don't know what it is.
Disturbing the
It's
shear.
written in Aramaic.
So loud.
It's a very hard.
Yeah, we hear you in here the
You're
whole
wrong.
time.
You're wrong.
The whole time. You're
I'm
wrong.
trying to look through the
You're
candy
wrong.
at the window.
Who?
You can hear candy at the window.
You're wrong. How you say how you say.
I didn't know what you said.
There's
No, we had a bet over under.
Yeah.